Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Signal's Top 10, where we are counting down some of the top stories of the week, many of which went misreported and some went underreported by the mainstream media. I'm Genevieve Wood, and here to break it all down with me is my colleague at the Daily Signal, senior contributor Jarrett Stepman, and our mutual colleague at the Heritage Foundation, Jenny Montalbano. Well, let's get right to it, and let's start with Oprah Winfrey.
New day is on the horizon. And when that new day finally dawns, it will be because of a lot of magnificent women, many of whom are right here in this room tonight, and some pretty phenomenal men fighting hard to make sure that they become the leaders who take us to the time when nobody ever has to say, me too, again.
Jenny, Oprah got a lot of praise and flack out of this. What'd you make of her comments?
I think there are a number of different ways to look at this. Who doesn't love Oprah? Oprah's a very unifying character. She proves she's a great orator. Her speech had a great anecdote at the beginning. It was very powerful and parts were very moving. The problem is now you have this element of hypocrisy that a lot of celebrities and regular people are pointing out, that she was close to Harvey Weinstein, might have known things, and unfortunately this is overshadowing perhaps the greater impact that her speech performed.
I mean, but the thing is, you could say that about every person sitting in that hall. I mean, they kept cutting away to Meryl Streep and all these other folks who also have a lot of photos in the past with Harvey Weinstein.
Yes.
I mean, the whole audience is filled with hypocrisy when you think about the kind of stuff that Hollywood often portrays and puts out there in terms of exploiting women and sex and all the other stuff that they do.
It was certainly very obnoxious to a certain extent to see people who kind of knew about things that were going on. Suddenly now they're getting on their high horse when they made excuses for this many years. I mean, there are, of course, accusations now that Oprah was among these people. An aspiring actress says that she got set up with Harvey Weinstein because Oprah expressed confidence in him. People are saying, well, didn't she know that this was going on? She's a high-profile person. So I think there are a lot of people saying, well, now Hollywood is really beating the drums on this, but this is a product of their culture. These are the things that they put on the American people. These are the images that they show on their screens. Now they're suddenly making a big issue to feel like heroes and martyrs when really they were the problem.
That said, though, I mean, once you learn what's going on, you should come out and condemn it. Oprah certainly was doing that, among others that were there. So I mean, that she should get a little bit of credit, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. I think she owned the moment that she had and performed very well, and hopefully it'll open up a larger conversation within Hollywood.
Yeah. Oprah owns most moments that she holds.
This is true.
All right, let's go to story number 9, which is Trump holds unprecedented bipartisan immigration meeting. Take a look at this.
And I got to give the President of the United States a lot of credit. He allowed the TV cameras in there for this really remarkable meeting.
I'm sure I'm going to get hit for this, and I don't really care. I think that the bottom line is that this is, a year ago, this is the presidency that many people thought Donald Trump was capable of.
So what was the point of running for president? You remember the president also ran on his skills as a negotiator, and he clearly has skills as a negotiator. But where were they today?
So this is kind of unusual, where you have the left side of the mainstream media, quote unquote, saying, way to go, President Trump. And then you've got Tucker Carlson over at Fox criticizing him.
Right. This was an incredible moment to watch. When he was doing this negotiation with Democrats and Republicans, I was actually watching my Twitter feed. And it was amazing because, at least for the time being, everyone had a similar point of view. This is incredible. This is partially why he was elected for the position he's in.
Making a bipartisan kind of deal.
Wheeling and dealing, negotiating, calling on people, inviting the cameras in for almost over an hour. It was incredible to watch. And I think the press reaction definitely showed that. Where he's getting some criticism is more about the policy itself. It was kind of apparent that on some points he maybe wasn't completely up to speed with what the conservative position is and what a lot of Republicans would want. But this is such a complicated and controversial issue. It's going to take a lot to get a bill signed. And I think, all in all, he did a great thing by bringing together everyone in a room and starting a very important conversation.
Well, and Jared, this is kind of the same criticism that's been given when he was out there on health care, even taxes at different times. Oh, he's just kind of throwing a lot of stuff around. but it seems like that's what he likes to do to get everybody in the mix and talking.
It does. Actually, I think this is one of the best forums for Trump. And I know certainly on the policy side, there have been criticisms from conservatives who are afraid, as always, that amnesty comes first, border security second. They're afraid that, border security is never going to come. But at the same time, I thought this was done, it looked like, something that we expected from Trump, which this is a businessman. He takes this seriously. And I have to say, it's so different than when Obama met with Congress years ago, in which he seemed to be more lecturing the legislators who came to him. Legitimately, Trump seemed to be speaking with these people in a very civil way, in a way that he was actually bouncing off ideas. And I have to say, it was a very impressive thing in his presidency to see Trump in this situation, seeming to be in command, seeming to take ideas from other people. I think it was very impressive.
Well, now the follow-up to all this, of course, is the way the media has now covered another aspect of this, which was President Trump's comments on Haiti. Take a look.
President Trump asked why America doesn't receive more immigrants from places you might want to visit on vacation. Why aren't we getting more people from Norway, he said, which by almost any measure, including the UN's measures, is the most developed and richest country in the world. Well, saying this, Trump used an expletive, and that's not surprising either, since he uses them all the time and was speaking privately. And yet, for some reason, virtually everyone in Washington, New York, and L.A. considered this a major, major event. Why is that?
They don't blink. They stand tall, and they have dignity. It's a dignity many in this White House could learn from. It's a dignity the president, with all his money and all his power, could learn from as well.
Okay, so there you have Tucker and Anderson Cooper completely switching in the way they saw this going. Jared, the president says he didn't say it.
Right.
I think a lot of folks say, well, maybe he did, but maybe, so what?
I mean, this was taken from what was supposed to be private comments. So honestly, we don't know a lot about what was said. Somebody thinks that Trump said something inappropriate.
He said stuff.
It's a he said situation. I mean, of course, the media just took it and ran, and they tried to portray these comments as something, he was saying something nasty about the Haitian people in particular. And I do have a problem with that portrayal. I mean, to a certain extent, if what Trump said was actually true, look, there are problems, serious problems with Haiti. That's the reason why people want to get out of Haiti. I feel that in many ways this has been the left-wing line. We should have compassion for people around the world. The United States is a good place for people to live. We should have compassion for people who live under dysfunctional government. And now suddenly they've turned this around and saying, well, Trump is insulting the people of Haiti, which he didn't do publicly. I think that's a really rich statement, especially because I feel that their answer to this has been completely incoherent.
Yeah, I mean, the descriptor that perhaps he used was colorful language, shall we say. I find the left amazing. Let's all remember the healthcare debate when, at that time, Vice President Joe Biden, when Obamacare was passed, came out and said, well, this is a really big, as we all know, effing deal. And the media thought that was so cool. I mean, that's a word far more, I would say, offensive to most people than what the president supposedly said. But on top of it, Jenny, I was just interviewing some of the dreamers earlier this week, and they talked about the reason they were here is their parents had left these countries because they were terrible. There was crime, there was terrible poverty, and that's why they came to the United States. That's what President Trump was talking about, regardless of what language he used.
Right. I mean, the language was certainly colorful. We've come to expect this from President Trump. Right now, it is a he said type of situation. So it's proven to be a huge distraction when we could be having really substantive conversations about helping these people. Instead, of course, the media sees this as a great opportunity to bash President Trump, blow it up to much larger than it should be. And we're seeing the effects of that right now.
And I'd like to add one thing. I don't, how many of these media people behind closed doors have privately said similar things about, for instance, red states in this country? I mean that's that's something that I definitely thought of when I saw this. So, they're getting on their high horse about us. They're getting emotional, but I think they need to cool it.
Yeah, very good point. All right, well, here's another story that we'll talk about the media's coverage of it. President Obama's library backlash. Watch this.
Hi, everybody. Over the course of the past year, Michelle and I have been working with an extraordinary team to dream up a campus for active citizenship on Chicago's South Side, the Obama presidential.
So this is interesting, Jenny, because there are people kind of on both sides being critical of this new library.
What's interesting about this is that people on both sides are mostly just confused because presidential libraries are supposed to reflect a president's legacy and how he wants to be remembered, right? This is a huge thing. It'll be there for generations after they pass. With President Obama's library, there is a testing kitchen, outdoor areas that have greatly confused a lot of people. And the end conclusion is this how you want to be remembered for your health agenda, etc.? Shouldn't it be maybe for more grand things that you accomplish, other policy initiatives?
I find, first of all, I actually spent about about a month in this particular area of Chicago doing a fellowship at the University of Chicago. And I've read some of the critique here of like, well, you're going to be interrupting this like really nice park area that's so quiet. Okay, that is a crime-ridden area of Chicago. I would say anything that comes in and that can lift that area up more and bring more tourists and the like in, and more business in and more jobs in would be a very good thing for this neighborhood. So whether or not I like what they advertise at the library, if he's trying to bring more business in, I actually think it's a good thing.
Yeah, honestly, I think most of these presidential libraries have been very well done. I mean, I've had a chance to visit many. We actually have one recently that was done at Mount Vernon. George Washington's library was finally up, and I think it is a good thing for people to go and look. Whether you're a fan of Obama or not, you know, he's trying to have a place where people can learn about the presidency of the United States. I mean, some of the criticisms about the taste of the art and what the actual building was supposed to be.
It's going to have a gym and stuff, but the people, the community can use it.
So, you know, I'm sure, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, this thing will probably develop over time. The initial conceptions of what this is supposed to be will probably change by the time this actually gets built.
All right, let's go to another story. We'll leave President Obama alone. Wait till, I mean, the library's not even built yet, right? They're just looking at like architectural plans. Let's go to another story that you may or may not have seen a lot about. H&M, the clothing line, if you're not familiar with it, it's a clothing line, and they had a ad that showed a little small child, a little African-American boy, wearing a sweatshirt that said, "Coolest Monkey." And there's caused a lot of controversies come out of that. Jarrett, what's your take on it? Explain for us what happened.
Yeah, honestly, there's definitely, especially in a lot of left-wing publications, have really been playing up the story saying that H&M was racist. And, of course, celebrities like LeBron James have come out against it. And I honestly feel it's a little unfortunate for H&M because it's a Swedish company. I don't think that they were trying to stir controversy. I don't think they realized what they were jumping in here. I don't think a company sits down and says, well, we're going to do something that's going to anger the people we're trying to sell sweatshirts to.
Because it was American, like, pop stars or whatever that kind of came out against this initially, right?
Exactly. And I feel that the audience in Sweden probably didn't realize that this was going to become a controversy, and now the company, of course, you know, they're trying to pull the ad and stuff like that. And honestly, I find it to be an unfortunate situation. Yes, it clearly offended some people very much, but I don't think the company itself was trying to jump into this controversy or offend anybody.
Yeah. Well, and the mom of the little boy, who's also black, said, "You guys are overblowing this. I was there for the photo shoot. I was okay with my child. I didn't think of it this way at all."
Right, and she was fine with it. I think the point is the company had no bad intentions. They just didn't realize until American pop stars and celebrities started pointing it out.
Right. Well, and there's nothing wrong with thinking, I mean, people can say it's overblown, but you can see where the controversy comes from, especially in this country. I mean, people have been fired over remarks like that. And if it does offend some, what would have been wrong with having a different colored little boy wearing that sweatshirt or something? But nonetheless, H&M is taken down, and apparently you can't buy the sweatshirt anymore. All right, back to the United States, where Nancy Pelosi, this is great, she says that those $1,000 bonuses and the like that AT&T and companies have been giving out, well, basically they're just crumbs. Take a look.
In terms of the bonus that corporate America received versus the crumbs that they are giving to workers to kind of put the schmooze on is so pathetic. It's so pathetic.
So, Jarrett, AT&T is one of about, 80 plus 100 companies that now have announced they're either increasing wages, giving out bonuses, making better benefits for employees. And by the way, we have a full list of all those different companies. There's a link at the bottom of the screen here where you can see who they are and what they've been doing for the employees. Walmart was a big one this week. But for Nancy, apparently it's just breadcrumbs.
Yeah, it's apparently no big deal to Nancy Pelosi. And it does get to the heart of her philosophy, which of course, the more you enlarge government, it's good for everybody, put more in our hands. But here's a case where tax cuts for the corporations and the rich and how they trash have actually greatly benefited your average person, your average Joe working at these places. I think a great story that we had in the Daily Signal, this is done by Fred Lucas, shows how many companies have actually raised their minimum wage to $15 at these companies. We had a list of about 21 companies. And I gotta say, this whole Fight for 15 movement about minimum wage, we gotta boost up. Well, look, it's a tax cut that actually brought these companies on their own free will.
The free market.
The free market,
not socialist
allowed
policies.
Those companies to say, you know what, we're going to do more for our employees because we want them to stay here. We want to be a good employer. So I think that Nancy Pelosi saying this is no big deal. I think there are a lot of Americans right now saying, this is a big deal. I'm feeling a lot more confident about the economy. I've got a good job. I'm getting a raise and a bonus. This is great.
Yeah. I mean, if the Heritage Foundation, I was talking about this earlier, I think with Jenny, I'm like, I didn't see the Heritage Foundation on this list. So we got to go talk to a few folks about that. Where's the bonus for the tax cuts? But no, I mean, if Heritage decided, I'm going to give you an extra $1,000, Genevieve, I would not call that crumbs. I mean, the fact that she thinks to, most American citizens, that's just no money, shows how out of touch she is with the average citizen.
She is. I think she has a net worth of upwards of $20 million. The fact that she can't relate to her constituents or the American people, $1,000 for a lot of families could mean a vacation, could mean so many extra opportunities for their children. Her dismissive tone in this is just kind of appalling.
Yeah, totally appalling and totally out of touch. All right, well, here's another story that some people found a bit appalling. Fox News' Janice Dean responded to someone who made some not so nice comments about her online. Take a look.
I want to be respectful and polite, but I also want to point attention to, what? We're not made of armor. These things do affect us, and I am proud of my big strong leg.
Okay, so Jenny, we were talking a little bit before we got started here, and I mean, what the woman said maybe wasn't all nice, but I didn't find this to be the harshest criticism, certainly that I've ever gotten about an appearance, but that other people I've seen have gotten.
Right. No, that's very true. In fact, I think what kind of gave this story momentum is Janice Dean's very eloquent, articulate response. She has been through several struggles. Janice Dean is very candid, a very genuine person. She faced a lot of struggles with some plastic surgery she did, and she kind of talked about that a lot as a warning to other women. And with this, in her response, she acknowledged her struggles with MS. And to her point, she said, this is why I'm proud to have, quote, big, strong legs. So she focused on this aspect of being grateful for what she did have, even if it doesn't appeal to all of the viewers.
Right. So kind of using it as an opportunity to talk about somebody who has MS and being able to overcome that and being thankful for your health. Yeah. Jarrett, what was your take?
Anybody who steps into the public sphere is going to get comments like this, and in many cases, a lot of it's women. My wife goes on TV from time to time. She gets some really nasty comments. You kind of have to let things slide off of you.
How's that possible? She's beautiful.
Well, she's very beautiful. She's very beautiful, but people are very nasty. And look, I think it's a good point to say that people are sometimes treat those they see on camera as if they're not real people, they're not human beings with all the kind of sensitivities that your average person has. And you do see a lot of nasty stuff out there. But to a certain extent, if you want to be on TV, you want to be on a camera, you're going to take some criticism, you're going to take some heat, and people may say some really nasty things that they shouldn't. It's going to happen.
Please don't say anything nasty about Jarrett because he's very sensitive.
Except for my mom. My mom,
she can be my critic. All right, well, let's talk about another woman who everybody, I think, knows, Dolly Parton. And she is renaming the Dixie Stampede, which is a big program and show they have at, what's it called?
Dollywood.
Dollywood, thank you. They're renaming Dixie Stampede because of cultural concerns. So can you kind of explain this for us? Have you been to the Dixie Stampede, by the way?
I have not. I've wanted to go to Dollywood. Honestly, this decision really disappoints me because the average person going to Dollywood, may have been from the South or whatnot, to rename something because it has the name Dixie and which
so now
refers to a region.
They're just going to call it the Dolly Parton Stampede.
Stampede. They're just going to remove the name. And honestly, I can't imagine too many people who actually go to Dollywood being particularly offended when they go there that something is named Dixie. I think that this is so overblown. Maybe there's one or two people that were somehow offended. But I find this to be such a silly decision. I think people are angry. Like, why is it something that's really innocuous term? The name Dixie refers to the region of the South. That this has to be something that we literally have to strip from the name because nobody can hear this name. I think it's an absurdity.
Yeah.
There's a lot of value in the brand, the Dixie Stampede. And like Jarrett said, I think it is unfortunate because the people who go there want to see the famed Dixie Stampede.
Well, and you know what's funny? I mean, remember the Dixie Chicks?
Yes.
Who were like left-wing crazies, right? They had to leave because George W. Bush was president, basically. Why did they call themselves the Dixie Chicks if that's such a... Anyway.
That's a great point.
Whatever.
Great point.
Okay. All right, let's go to number 2, staying in the Hollywood or the entertainment arena. Fans are demanding the return of Last Man Standing, which of course featured actor Tim Allen. And this is coming out, Jenny, of the fact that it looks like Roseanne Barr is going to have a new, well, not a new character, but bringing her old character back, and she's going to be a Trump supporter.
Yes.
And so people are like, hey, maybe it's cool to be that on TV again. So let's bring Tim Allen back.
Right, so she acknowledged that, which incited this sort of second wave of fans demanding that Last Man Standing comes back. When it was originally canceled a couple months ago, fans were shocked and kind of horrified because, except for Modern Family, it was the second highest rated comedy on ABC. Now, Tim Allen is conservative. He's been outspoken. He has not been shy about those views. And the character that he plays on the show also shares those conservative values. The show is hilarious. It's family friendly. It's funny. So fans were obviously very disappointed when it was canceled.
So naturally it should be taken off TV. It's funny and it's family friendly. Gotta go.
Of course. And that's been one of the major criticisms, is that did ABC nix it because it featured conservative policies and it was successful. Did they find that dangerous somehow?
Yeah, I don't think it won a Golden Globe.
No, I don't think so. You know, it definitely, I mean, they're definitely...
Tim Allen could give a speech after Oprah.
Right, exactly.
That'd be great.
No, it's interesting. Go back. I mean, this happened years ago. There's a show called Firefly. It was it was produced in the early 2000s. It actually had a huge audience, especially after it's created. It had kind of, people think, a kind of libertarian message to it. They brought it back years later with a kind of movie that kind of brought back the Firefly series. So I don't think of this series as dead and gone, especially because there is popular support. People like this show. They want it brought back.
Look, they brought back things like Will and Grace.
Yes.
They're bringing back Roseanne. What's wrong with bringing back Last Man Standing?
Absolutely nothing.
One more stand. All right, final story. This one probably not one that many of you have heard of unless you're living in Texas, but there are activists there who are boycotting the governor, Greg Abbott, being at the Martin Luther King parade on Monday. Take a look.
Look at the peculiars of this situation, this governor, it doesn't, and his policies, it's just not as great an idea as people would think.
And it's right for all of us to come together and to celebrate that legacy and to remind all Americans about the dream that MLK talked about and to ensure that we strive every single day to live up to that dream.
So this parade's going to be happening right outside of Dallas, in a city named Arlington, I believe, which is close to where the Dallas Cowboy Stadium is. And Governor Abbott says he's coming.
Yeah, it sounds like he's still going to go through with this, which I think is the right thing to do. I think it's interesting because the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. was very much inclusion, which is opening up American ideals for all people. This was his criticism. There's a story that really struck me from Martin Luther King Jr.'s childhood, which he says he was living under a policy of segregation. He had a young friend who was white, and one day his father said, well, you can't be friends anymore. And it does strike me that this group trying to celebrate the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. saying, this man can't come here because, well, he's not one of us. He can't come. He can't see this. He's not part of our group. We're going to exclude him. I think that's very much the opposite of MLK's message.
Well, and the fact that they're saying it's because Governor Abbott represents policies that are not liberal policies, basically. He's not for Obamacare. He's for less government in your lives. He's for less regulation. But, Martin Luther King, I mean, I love how folks try to go back and say, here's what they would have been today. Martin Luther King Jr. would have supported, Obamacare. He would have been opposed to, equality or, quality education for all students because he would oppose things like school choice. Well, I don't know that that's also true. We don't know necessarily that he would have been opposed to all of that. And so this idea that if you're somehow a Republican or a conservative, you can't. Frankly, Martin Luther King, a lot of things he stood for were conservative values.
Absolutely. And, and to a certain extent, of course, there's debate over his legacy over anybody, and that people don't always agree with everything somebody said. Look, I love Thomas Jefferson. I don't believe in everything that he ever said. And look, some of the ideas of Martin Luther King Jr., about especially his statements in this I Have a Dream speech about colorblindness, that would be considered offensive on a modern college campus. That's something that conservatives have very much embraced that the left has often rejected. So, to a certain extent, look, we're going to debate over his legacy. We're going to debate what it means. But, to say that certainly in this case where it's somebody trying to be inclusive and being part of something and come together and say, look, where can we find common ground? I want to be a part of this. I do think that's an unfortunate, thing that, what MLK tried to do is bring a lot of Americans together under this idea, these set of ideas that he believed in. It kind of violates that. We say, well, somebody can't belong because they don't agree with X and Y policy.
And Jenny, my understanding is Martin Luther King Jr.'s son is actually going to be at this parade, so he's got no problem with the governor coming.
Which is incredible. I applaud Governor Abbott for standing by this and still going. It does a disservice to MLK's legacy by this group making such a stint out of trying to keep Governor Abbott out. He should be included. Like Jared said, this is a reason to celebrate his legacy, not to create all these new controversies that just tarnish what we're trying to celebrate.
And find new ways to separate and divide and segregate people. All right, well, thank you both very much for being here with us. Thank you all for being with us. We hope you do enjoy this Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, and we will see you back here next week on the Daily Signal's Top 10.